Welcome to the Maria Heller Show, the Internet's original podcast. Since the year 2000, always ahead of the curve, always on your side. A true warrior for truth and justice, Maria and her guests leave nothing out, and no one is off limits. There is only one truth, the rest is lies. Sit back, enjoy the education with a true daughter of Mother Earth. Sharp New York wit, spiritual knowing, and a very dry sense of humor, Maria will dissect the news and lies to make it all palatable. Education is power. Maria delivers rapid-fire truth like no one else can. Here she is, the mouth that roars, the legendary Maria Heller. Good morning, world. Maria here, alive and kicking. Welcome to the show. Today is Conversations with David Icke. And it feels like it's been 10 years since David's been on the show, but I know it's only been a couple of months. Good morning, David.
Morning, Maria.
I'm so glad to have you back on the show.
Yeah, it'd be good to be here.
Well, I do want to, I want to thank you for introducing me to Monica Sepulveda, by the way.
All right, yeah, I've known her a long time.
Yeah, Monica and I started doing a monthly show, and I'll tell you, my audience loves us together, so thank you for that.
Yeah, well, she's a great character. I love lived-in people. And what I mean by that is people who've been around the block, people who've had experience, people who've had ups and downs and have actually experienced life. I call them lived-in people. They're very interesting characters with very interesting experiences. And, people complain when, things are not going very well and all that. We've all had loads of that. But every one of the lines in the face is an experience, a bit of wisdom learned if you've got any brains, and I like people like that.
I do too. I guess I have a lot of wisdom because my face has got a lot of lines. David, I was looking at your site. I see you going on tour again, and I also know that you've been working on a movie, which is why you've been kind of hard to get. Can you tell me a little bit about both the movie and the tour?
Well, the tour's ongoing, really. I kind of started it in the summer of 2016, and, I really expect to be continuing with it, till I drop, really. I started out, of course, doing the all-day events that I've been doing for decades. And then last year, I moved to evening events, 4 hours. And this is... very different because people who really, really want to know, they would come to the all-day events where I, went into loads of things in great detail. But what we're looking for, obviously, is people who are curious and would like to, put their toe in the water, if you like. And what I kind of observed as I was going around the world in the last part of the all-day ones is how everywhere you were finding people who weren't into the information so much yet. I'm not talking about people who were coming to the events. I mean people elsewhere, but they were uneasy about the world. They were uneasy about the way the world was going. They didn't like the way it was going, but they couldn't put the finger on why they didn't like it, why they felt uneasy, but they did, and so this evening event tour, which has been going for a while now, is not aimed entirely at them because obviously there's a lot of new stuff in it for people who've followed it a long time, but what I'm finding is pennies are dropping in those people that come along just because they're curious. Yeah, okay, I'll give it 4 hours. And suddenly it's, whoa, this makes sense of the world that what I've been told before didn't. And it kind of gives clarity to why they feel uneasy about what's going on. So it's been very successful. And I'm going off into Scandinavia, which would be interesting, Oslo in Norway, and then Stockholm, Sweden, and then Helsinki. And then off into Europe to places like Hungary and Poland and Amsterdam, and then I'm coming back to England and going all around the country, Scotland in the north, right down to the south, and finishing off just down the road from where I live now, about 4 miles on the Isle of Wight. And then I'm writing a book at the moment, and then that I won't finish by the end of January, because then I'm going off to Mexico, talking at an event there, and then going on that then to Australia to do 6 cities in Australia. And then by that time, in the spring, the movie should be out. It's called Renegade, and it's being shot. In fact, it is all shot basically now. They're editing it by an American company, lovely people, and we've been shooting in Britain. They came to Ireland with me, an event I did there. We've been to Washington, D.C., to Silicon Valley, up in Northern California to meet Alice Walker, who great lady.
Oh, yeah.
Of The Color Purple, great lady, and it's ready to go now. So we'll see where it goes.
What's the basis of the movie? Is it talking about you? Is it like your life story? Is it about your work?
Well, it's both really. It's telling what's happened to me in the last 30 years, but at the same time, it's looking at what I've been saying in the last 30 years. So it's both fused into one really. This company has a very good track record of getting its movies out to a very, very large audience. They were the makers of a movie about extraterrestrial UFOs called Unacknowledged. Mm-hmm. And they seem very, very professional. I really enjoyed working with them, and don't think it's going to be the last movie we're going to do. So what this is aimed at, obviously, is again widening the number of people that are aware of this information, because that's absolutely vital and absolutely urgent.
Mm-hmm. Now, did I see a while ago that one of those countries was giving you a hard time to get into? Was that Australia?
Well, it was, yeah, but I've got it now. Got the visa now, so that's definitely on. Took a while, but a while of complete radio silence. But I've got it now, just in time actually, because what Jamie, my son, who runs everything, organizes everything, decided with me is that. If we've not got the visa by this coming Friday, we're going to have to pull it because of the run-up time.
Right.
And it came on the Wednesday, I think. So that was very synchronistic. The hardest country to get into is Germany, funnily enough. That's really, really stitched up. It's a very, very controlled country. Mm. And, we book venues there, and sometimes venues take the booking and then pull out when they start getting abuse. And a lot of other times they just won't take the booking. So it can't speak in Germany. And, you'll say to people who are not aware anyway in Germany, do you live in a free country? And they'll say, oh, yeah, of course we do. Well, you don't.
Right.
And, of course, what we're seeing around the world is freedom of expression being squeezed and squeezed and squeezed all the time. Say what you like about Alex Jones. It doesn't matter what people think of him. What's happened to him in terms of being censored and banned by all these tech companies at the same time. I mean, it wasn't coordinated or anything. It basically is a chilling. Happening for everybody.
Well, it certainly happened to me. I mean, in the past, this is just within the past 3 months, I've been banned for 30 days twice. And I sent you an article this morning to show you why I got banned for 30 days. And it was an article connecting the Supreme Court nomination, Kavanaugh, and not just him, all the nominations, to the Knights of Malta and Dopus Dei. And as soon as I posted that, I got immediately banned for 30 days.
Well, see, that's where we are now. I mean, how it's all happened is that this is what I've been saying over the years. The internet itself was created from military technology by DARPA, the technological development arm of the Pentagon, and of course, if DARPA is creating something, then there's a colossal ulterior motive that's not good for humanity.
Right.
But to sell the internet and get it to be essential to people's lives and central to the way that society globally is run, which they've now achieved, they had to at the start make it something that people wanted. So it was a free internet. You could have free discourse. You could say what you felt, what you liked. You could have any opinion, virtually any opinion. And as this pulled more and more people in, and it became this central point of human society, the internet now, they were building up companies, giving them fake cover stories for how they came about, seed funding them, and promoting them in ways that started to build them up into monopolies, social media monopolies, search engine monopolies like Google, who of course own YouTube. And once people were in the web or on the end of the fishing line, in other words, they'd become dependent upon the internet, and the internet had become, through these corporations, the major vehicle through which people get their information and their news, then the real face of DARPA's internet started to show. And of course, first of all, they start picking off, we've got to stop jihadis recruiting online, so we'll ban that opinion. We'll widen it, of course, so anyone's a terrorist, basically, in the end, who has any opinion that's outside the norm. And then, hate speech. Let's have hate speech. No, you can't have hate speech. Oh, yeah, what about fake news? Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, I'm glad you thought of that. Fake news, I like the sound of that. Yeah, what about fake news? Yeah. And, of course, fake news means basically, from their point of view, any information that's challenging the official narrative. And so it's gone on, step by step by step, the totalitarian tiptoe, as I call it. And now we're seeing it get to extreme levels. I mean, I was seeing this actor, this American actor, has just been banned by Twitter for posting a meme that was very innocuous, just a joke, relating to voting Democrat, his opinion, and he's been banned because it was said that it could be manipulating electoral outcome.
Right,
well,
that
every opinion.
Right, that was James Wood.
That.
Right, that was James Wood. I remember the story.
That's right.
I saw it yesterday.
Well, every opinion is affecting an election because someone may look at it and say, "Well, I didn't know that about that fella.
Right.
Well, I'm not voting for him or her, or I am voting for him or her."
Right.
So what do you do? What do you do then? And what about election advertisements? Do you ban them? Oh no, because they pay for them. So it's the excuses are becoming. The more extreme it gets, the lamer the excuses become. But it's all been planned from the start.
Well, and you've been talking about that forever. I mean, what do you think about China right now, where they have a social rating on every person, and they get punished or rewarded according to basically being spied on every minute of their lives to what they do? I mean, I think this is not just going to be limited to China.
What's happening in China, people need to realize, is what's planned for the so-called Free West. See, China has, it's been a massive laboratory and development operation from this point of view, because you've had a closed society in terms of the government, complete control by the government and its military and other enforcers. And so they've been able to do what the hell they bloody like. Mm-hmm. And so they've been able to push this on quicker than the West, or the West is catching up. And what you're seeing now is this coming together. This is why suddenly you're seeing Google and these people are getting in with the Chinese government, and absolutely disgustingly, Google agreeing to go into China and accept government censorship in its search in its search engine. I mean, that's absolutely disgusting.
Right.
I mean, Brin and Page don't run Google, but they are aware enough to realize how disgusting this is, and the fact they're going ahead with it is well, disgusting.
I know, and it's interesting because some of the workers at Google have been protesting because they don't want any part of it. But of course,
well, I did see some footage recently of a Google sort of staff employee team meeting in this kind of theater with Sergey Brin on the microphone, being openly political in his views and about in American politics. And all these people in the audience, all these Google employees, were overwhelmingly wearing the same type of baseball cap. It's this red and yellow, the colors of Google, and it was straight out of 1984. Mm-hmm.
Right.
And Google is. I mean, I'm using this word a lot tonight because I am talking about Google, so you must understand. It is a disgusting organization, and it has fantastic power to, ironically, manipulate electoral and other outcomes because it can decide what people see when they search keywords. I'm just now producing a book which will I'll be finished, I hope, by January, which is about 9/11. And I published a book in a year after 9/11, to the month,
right,
called Alice in Wonderland and the World Trade Center Disaster, which was pretty much the first major book to really question 9/11 and look at the evidence that the official story was a lie. I've been now putting together not an update of that, but a completely new book that actually brings together all the information now over 17 years, and it is staggering.
I can't wait.
But where I'm going with this is that going around the internet, following 9/11 information, you can see the scale of censorship that's gone on.
Oh, absolutely.
I remember what it was like when I wrote Alice in Wonderland in the 9 months after the attacks, and there was information everywhere. And you'd go into a search engine and you would see, information about 9/11 of all kinds. But now you've got to get the search engine words pretty perfect to pull up a lot of the information that's exposing 9/11 as the hoax that it is. The main search engines of Google are the conventional story, and this is what you're going to be finding, because, of course, in Europe, the European Union judges, in fact, just one judge actually in terms of the vote, decided to impose upon the entirety of Europe no vote in any parliament, to introduce a law that says that you can apply to these to Google, etc., and if there's stuff on there on the internet about you that's not good about you, true stuff, like things you may have been charged with or things you may have done, then you can apply for it to be removed. And this is George Orwell's concept of the memory hole, where things that have happened just disappear and you can't get access to them. So how this works is that it's still there, but it doesn't show on the search engine. Mm-hmm. So how the hell do you find it?
Right.
This is, it's basically a right to disappear information that you don't want people to see. That's what the law is. So you add all this together, and the information that's actually on the web, or at least accessible on the web, that is challenging the official narratives of everything, is way less now, comparison to volume, than it used to be, and it's just being worn away and worn away.
Right. Well, it's interesting you mentioned your book on 9/11, Alice in Wonderland, because on 9/11 I posted that. I posted the cover of your book on every one of my pages on social media, and people loved the fact that I reminded them of that book. But one thing I have noticed, for a while, even though I can't post and I'm like a ghost on Facebook, I can still see what people post. For a while, I was noticing 4 or 5 posts, or should I say, memes from you on Facebook, and now they're gone.
Yeah.
I haven't seen them in days. And this is how they get people to shut up. I saw one woman who probably gets banned as much as I do, and she really doesn't put anything as inflammatory as I do there. And she posted this morning an interesting meme. She said, "I'm afraid to post anything."
Yeah.
So you look at the fear that they give you of, you won't be able to post pictures of your cats and dinners. And people are now self-censoring.
Yes, exactly. And I know we chatted about this before. Self-censorship is the worst kind of censorship because no debate goes on. No one knows it's happening. People just don't do it anymore. That's what this is really all about. It's getting people to self-censor. This happens in the mainstream media all the time. Journalists know there's a line that if they cross, they'll be in trouble, so they just don't cross it.
Right.
They don't put forward stories that are worthy of public attention because of the fact that that's beyond the line that their media organization would want to go. So this is what's happening now, and people like Zuckerberg and Page and Brin and Dorsey and Bezos. These people who don't, I would strongly suggest, run their companies, but are front people for them.
Right.
They are, and I'll use the word again, they are disgusting. The way that they parrot on about being liberal and open, they know exactly what's going on.
Absolutely.
They're high enough in the hierarchy, even though they're not at the top of their companies in terms of decision making. They absolutely know what's going on, and how they sleep at night. I have no idea. Like a baby, probably.
Right, but Zuckerberg had quite the surprise today when the 2 co-founders of Instagram decided to just up and quit. After he paid them $1 billion. Imagine that, David. He paid them $1 billion to have control over Instagram, which, by the way, has 1 billion users. Interesting. And everybody's just, it just looks like the writing's on the wall for Facebook. And maybe their time is due to just go the way of MySpace.
Well, I do hope so, because it's the monopolistic situation that's dangerous. If you had Facebook banning people, well, okay, we'll take the consequences. We'll all go somewhere else. I don't go on Facebook. I have news items every day posted there, but because you try to get this information to every audience as possible. But I don't interact with Facebook. Got too much to do. But if you had alternatives where you could get similar coverage, similar size audience, then if people started banning freedom of expression, then they'd take the consequences because people would go somewhere else.
Right.
But when you've got a monopolistic situation, that's more difficult, because where do they go? Where do you go to get anything like the audience with a video other than YouTube?
Right.
You know,
right.
There are people trying to get it out there, but you know, YouTube is obviously backed by this extraordinarily wealthy Google operation. So therefore, you know, how do you compete with that?
Well, you have to start somewhere.
YouTube is censoring as well.
Right. Well, I'll tell you, David, first of all, there's another social media. It's a slow start because, of course, everybody's not disgusted enough with Facebook, who's already lost 50% of their members. There's one called MeWe.com. And my good friends, a very talented young couple in Nevada, created a fabulous one that they're just starting to promote now, and it's called politichat.net. And for my audience, I'll put a link in here so you guys can just click through and join it. Where there is no ads, there is no censorship, and their goal is to eliminate the ignorance out there. So there are people.
My lads who work with me and deal with all that, they do post on as many as possible every day, not just Facebook.
Right.
There's quite a few they post on, but I'll have a look at those two. I haven't come across those two.
Well, MeWe's kind of new, but I've been there for several months, especially when I get banned. People know where to find me. But I'll tell you this, what I find interesting, David, and I think people just need to step back and walk away and look at the big picture. When I'm banned for 30 days, Twitter, first of all, loves me. So I've been getting like 100 new friends on Facebook from Twitter every day that they ban me. But when I look at Twitter's newsfeed, and then I go over to my newsfeed, which no longer has any news in it on Facebook, all I see on Facebook is garbage, hatred, rebel-rousing, and stupidity. And that's what Facebook has become. So until you stand away from it, you don't really see it because you're sucked in. Do you know what I mean? It's like an addiction that you're sucked into, but you don't see how bad it is for you.
But that's what they want. You see, a lot of this so-called hatred is generated by the people who claim to be anti-hate. That's the great irony.
Right.
I mean, the hate that comes from the so-called progressive left, which claims to be liberal but is the absolute opposite of it, is quite staggering. You know, when you see a contorted face full of anger and hate screaming about we must stop hatred, it's quite
right.
bizarre, the level of psychological self-deception that's going on there. But of course, what the system wants, it wants this stuff. I mean, if you weaponize the term anti-Semitism and you are using it not to stop racism but to stop the legitimate criticism of Israel,
right,
then what do you want? You want more anti-Semitism, because that then gives you more justification for your case to expand, as has happened, to expand the definition of anti-Semitism to include criticism of Israel. So it's good for these people. They want this. They want an excuse. It's literally problem reaction solution, or no problem reaction solution often,
right,
to justify more and more censorship. So you've got to see it as a psychological game, because that's what it is.
Right.
This whole conspiracy for control of human society is psychological. It plays out in various ways that appear not to be psychological, but it's all psychological. Mm-hmm. It's about controlling the perception of people to put them in these tram lines of perception, very narrow band of perception. And anyone that won't submit to that and is exposing it and putting other information in front of people, which would change their perceptions potentially, well, they're being silenced. I was talking in an interview yesterday, and I was talking about the difference between the microphones and the people. You see, what dominates discourse, what passes for it, in the main arena of information circulation, where most people get their information, it's dominated by the opinions of those that have access to the microphones. Mm-hmm. And of course, what the system does, it gives those microphones overwhelmingly to people who are promoting what it wants people to believe. So you can, for instance, the examples are endless. You can post, if you are coming from this progressive political correctness direction, you can post horrible abuse of people on Facebook and Twitter, and elsewhere, YouTube. You never get banned.
Right.
You never get banned because you're saying what they want people to believe. Mm-hmm. You are calling on people to hate those that the system wants people to hate. So therefore, you're not going to get banned. It's the people that are coming from the other direction that the system doesn't want people to hear. They're the ones that get banned. And so if you don't realize that, what you can fall into the trap of is thinking that the general opinion of the public, people in general, is what's coming out of the microphones. It ain't.
Right.
When I talk to people, people in the supermarket, people walking down the street who come up to me, I get in conversations with people, and you ask them their opinions of various things. They're invariably nothing like the opinions of the microphones.
Exactly.
Take political correctness. Oh, yeah, we must have more political correctness. You can't say that. You can't say that. I don't think I've ever met anyone in the general public so far, anywhere in the world, that wasn't appalled at the way people are being censored and abused for having an opinion. But they don't get the microphones.
Right.
But you can fall into the trap of thinking that the microphones are representations of public opinion. They are absolutely not. You know, we had a situation recently, it's still going on really, but it reached a real peak about 2 or 3 weeks ago, whereby the British opposition Labour Party, led by a guy called Jeremy Corbyn, has been under untold abuse from the Zionist lobby, the ultra-Zionist lobby, to accept a ludicrously broad and unjustifiable definition of anti-Semitism, which they've weaponized and therefore can use to this definition to stop criticism of Israel. And in the end, he caved. He caved less than the people around him, but the party caved in and accepted it. And of course, the abuse was coming from the newspapers, who can't stand the Labour Party anyway, and Corbyn. And it was coming from the Zionist lobby, and it was coming from other groups of people who can't stand Corbyn and want him out. So that was a coalition of anti-Corbyn and anti-Labour people,
right.
And the ultra-Zionist lobby that wants this definition accepted so it can stop criticism of Israel. So they caved, but they caved in the face of this abuse that was all coming from these microphones I'm talking about.
Right.
You talk to people in the street and they could see what's going on. They could see that this was just a scam to stop criticism of Israel. They could see that it was a coalition of that and people that just wanted Corbyn to resign or forced out as leader. But so what do? You look at what people think, and you go with that. You don't go with the hysteria of the microphone voices and the agendas of the microphone voices, and you don't cave. See, when I'm talking and writing and doing things on the internet, I'm not talking to the microphone people. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I couldn't care less. I'm not trying to persuade academia. I'm not trying to persuade mainstream journalists that what I'm saying has got validity. I couldn't care what they think about what I'm saying. I'm talking to the public, and I'm talking to people who are far more intelligent than the microphone people. And I'm going direct to the public, direct to the general population, not going seeking to go via these various mainstream microphones, and it works. It works,
Absolutely.
and you don't change what you say or change what you do because people in the system are hurling abuse at you. I mean, who cares? And therefore, you don't stop and defend yourself. There's nothing to defend yourself about. You just talk directly to the public, and anyone, he who have ears, let them hear, and that whole
Right.
concept. And people need to do that because public opinion is not the same as microphone opinion.
Right.
And we must keep that in mind, otherwise we can get caught.
Well
Letting
said.
microphones set the agenda of what should be.
Right. David, we need to take a short break. Stay with us, David, and I'll be right back. Hi, this is Maria. I don't often get to talk directly to the listeners here on the Gary Knoll Network, but I felt like doing that today. I know a lot of you really enjoy my show, but you might not know that I do 4 shows a week over at my website, maria.net. So if you're loving the show you get to hear on Sunday, come on over to my site and subscribe because I've got hundreds of hours of great shows on pretty much every topic in the universe. And that again is maria.net, MERIA.net. And now we can get back to this excellent show. Thanks. Hi, Maria here, and I have a message. Due to the pressure of the times we're living in, I'm calling on all students and millennials to get the education they need to fight the fascism taking over our world. I've made a special subscription offer for students and for seniors on a limited budget. For just $9.99 a month, you can subscribe and get that education. Over 500 hours of real education that's necessary to understand the world, the problems, and the solutions. Remember, knowledge is power. Together you can change the world, but to do so you must be informed of what's really going on and have real facts to support you in your endeavors. It's time for all the grandmothers to take a stand and teach the younger generation what their life could be and how to get there. Help me help you. One person cannot do it alone, and the guidance you seek is right here at www.maria.net, MERIA.net. Your generation is the generation we've been waiting for, so let me help you. Thanks for listening. Okay, welcome back. I'm speaking with my good friend and excellent author, speaker, David Icke. His latest book, not the one he's writing right now, Everything You Need to Know But Have Never Been Told. It's excellent. I finally did get to finish it. And I highly recommend that. The Perception Deception is another great book, but then of course I'm partial. I like all your books, David. David, I was happy to see one of your videos, God, it was a couple of weeks ago, where you were talking about Dave McGowan's work in Weird Scenes Inside the Canyon.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know, you probably do, but Dave was a co-host with me for 14 years on my show.
Yeah, I heard that. Yeah.
And we did quite the extensive interviews on Weird Scenes. Dave, did some really great work. He was a Mensa student. He was one of the most brilliant people I've ever met with a great sense of humor. But when he came out with his work on the Boston bombings, he made himself a target. And then with Weird Scenes, it was pretty much the end of Dave McGowan. And, I don't want to get into, that part of the story, but I was really happy to see you covering his work because a lot of people just kind of gloss over his work, and his work has always been as excellent as yours.
Yeah, well, the book on the flower power scene of the 60s is excellent and unique in terms of the subject matter from my experience anyway. Some other people must have written about it, I guess, but not to my knowledge. And the way he exposes how the whole 60s flower power era was basically a front for the military intelligence complex was very, very, not just very, very interesting for someone like me, of course, who lived through the 60s and watched it from afar on a black and white TV in England. But it's indicative of the way the system works.
Right. You know, if that was going on then, it's going on now.
Yes. Now, let's I'm glad you brought this up. I wasn't expecting it, but I'm glad you did, because we can apply this to today. See, what was happening in the 60s is that young people thought they were challenging the system.
Right.
And yet, all the time, the system was using them to serve the system. And, as McGowan identifies brilliantly, all these major bands and personalities that basically defined the 60s and the flower power era of years, coming from military and intelligence families, turning up in Laurel Canyon near LA around the same time, and then they suddenly become so many of the defining names and bands of the 60s, Jim Morrison, all of them. And so you had this situation where it appeared to be a massive revolution against the counterculture, they called it, didn't they?
Right.
Against the system, but the system was running it. And now we have this progressive, so-called regressive, actually, situation, which is taking so much control of the colleges, the universities, the campuses, what they now call campus culture, and they think the system is Trump. It's hilarious. Trump's just the front man for the same system that controls the Democrats, ladies and gentlemen. They've used Trump to create this division and this polarity. But what's happening is you've got a situation now where Trump is owned by Israel completely, 100%. And by the neocons now. I mean, anyone that puts John Bolton in as National Security Advisor is not serious about draining the swamp. But what they've got in the wings now, waiting to come in, because of the way the Democratic Party has gone and gone further and further the other way in response to this polarity of Trump. They've got waiting to come in a Democratic Party that will absolutely destroy what's left of freedom of speech and freedom of everything. There's been such a psychological job done on this progressive mindset, which is extraordinarily arrogant, that believes that only its opinion has any validity, and because anyone that doesn't agree with them must be wrong, what's the point in giving them freedom of speech? What they say has no validity because they're saying something different to me. This is literally the mentality that's running through their minds. And they have had such a job done on them psychologically that they think hysterically that they are the successors to the civil rights movement of the 60s, to the Martin Luther Kings and so on. They're not. Martin Luther King would wince and weep at what they're doing. And creating all these divisions and fault lines and all this reverse racism they are involved in.
Right.
And so,
well, David, you and I. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
You and I have talked about the one-party system in this country that people continue to fall for, whether they're Democrat, Republican. And you and I have talked for almost 20 years now about stolen elections, how the votes are manipulated, how the votes are not counted. And yet, very few people, and I mean, I've been covering this since 2000, very few people don't realize they're constantly being played, and we're being played against each other. How do we fix that? How do we fix it? I don't know how many more shows I need to do on the same topic.
I mean, people can only fix it by opening their minds to reality. You can take them to water, but they don't necessarily have to drink it or decide to drink it. But what's happened is as the Trump administration, that which controls Trump, has pushed, at least in in some ways literally, but in other ways perceptually, to the right. So they've created a situation where the other polarity has gone the other way. So now you've got this big division between the two. So on one side, at the extreme, you're saying build a wall across the Mexican border, and on the other side, at the extreme, they're saying let anybody in. Right? This is how far the polarities have been pushed apart now. And so it's literally you've got an extremist government, whichever one comes in. Because if the Democrats come in, then all this political correctness is going to deluge American society. And because, they can't see, not least because they're so far up their own backside, it must be, very difficult to see anything, that they're acting like the very Nazis they accuse everyone else of being. And that is coming in. I mean, some of the statements now about coming out of the Democratic Party are extraordinary. I mean, over this Kavanaugh story, I don't know what the background of that is, and nor does anyone else in the public arena or politics. But the timing of it, 35 years after it's alleged to have happened, just as the Democrats were desperate to stop him getting onto the Supreme Court, is so blatantly, obviously, a political act.
Well, but you could always...
When you hear Democrat politicians saying that he has to prove that the allegations are not true, allegations which up to this point have had no detail whatsoever.
Right.
And the lady, Ms. Ford, has to be believed as a matter of course. This they don't see how absolutely destructive that is to basic human justice and fairness.
Well, we do have...
They can't see it.
I know.
And what I'm saying, Maria, is that is what is waiting to come in.
Right.
So if people think Trump is extreme, well, you wait till the Democrats get in next time.
Well, I haven't seen... Listen, I've been alive a long time and I haven't seen either party do jack squat for me. But the thing is, we have a system in place for that. All they would have had to do, and they did have foreknowledge that not only her, but so far now 4 women have come through. The FBI is supposed to investigate it the same way they did Bill and Monica Lewinsky. I mean, it should be no different. But, you have the GOP who's, I hate to say it, they're all so freaking old and they're, yesterday's news. And this is another way of creating division and distraction, okay? Because nobody's paying attention to all the money that they're stealing from us. Nobody's paying attention to the rich getting richer and the poor getting screwed, as my mother used to say. Nobody's paying attention to the devaluation of the dollar across the world right now.
When's the last time I heard, because I follow American politics very closely every day, when's the last time that I've heard a Democratic politician talking about the economy? and talking about homeless in Los Angeles, etc.
You don't, but you don't hear it from either party. They don't. This is what we have here in America now is something that was one of the first topics I ever covered on my show, David, all the years ago, is class warfare. We have a caste system set up in this country. Neither party's going to talk about it because they're all millionaires. We have taxation without representation in this country. And they've got theirs, so they don't care about anybody else. You know, they like to hide behind, we're a Christian nation, while we have more and more homeless people in the streets, children starving every day in this country.
Absolutely. And how is that helped by opening the borders to anybody?
It doesn't. But how's it going to help? First of all, nobody's coming across the border, all right? The amount of people coming in from Mexico has dropped significantly over the past decade. Why would they come here? Okay, there's no jobs here for Americans, regardless of how much they say the economy's improved. You don't see it on regular people.
Yeah, well, the economy's improved for the people that Trump represents, of course.
Oh, the 1%.
That's why you've had all the tax cuts and what have you. But the point is, and it's the same with migration into Europe. What about the people that are already there and in desperate straits?
Right, they don't care.
I mean, how does that work? What are the mathematics of that? Never mind, kind of pushing it into a racism argument, which is not what I'm saying. I'm talking about numbers.
Right.
How does that work? I mean, we've got people in Britain who, again, the progressive mentality, who are saying that the hospitals are falling apart, there's not enough homes for people, there's not enough jobs for people, and at the same time saying open the borders. Well, how are you going to square those two things?
Right. When you and I know there's a simple solution. All we have to do is stop bombing the shit out of these other countries and leave these people alone so that they wouldn't have to flee their countries.
But
that's the ultimate problem reaction solution. We create the problem.
I mean, the people who don't follow this need to realize just how detailed this is. They knew that when they started bombing countries in the Middle East, that they would force an exodus. And this is why George Soros and his Open Society Foundation network are fundamentally involved in directing and expanding this movement of people into Europe. This is why Hungary has just banned his organizations, because they've seen what he's actually doing. And he's doing the same in America as well, by the way. It's a cause and effect.
Right.
It's a domino falling.
Okay,
and the next thing that happens, which is now happening in places like Germany and in Sweden, etc., where I'm going soon, is you now have got a gathering divide and rule situation between the incoming migrants and the parts of the indigenous population, which is exactly what the plan was, to create divide and rule between the incoming migrants and the indigenous population. And this was planned before a single bomb was dropped. They know how these sequences work, and they know how to play them out.
Well, I'm sure you're including that type of information in your book on 9/11, how everything was planned, including the war in Iraq and Afghanistan, and 9/11 was the bingo moment.
It's so unbelievably obvious.
Right.
But this is the point. The foundation of what I do and have done for nearly 30 years is connecting dots that don't on the surface appear to be connected. If you are only seeing dots, then you're not going to see the picture. You're going to see the pixels, and that's going to give you only a view of the pixels at the point of individuality. When you see them connected, suddenly the picture becomes crystal clear. And I've been looking, for weeks now, 12 hours a day mostly, because once I get into something, I'm like, I just want to do it all the time. At information about 9/11, and you absolutely need people, obviously, that specialize in certain areas or have expertise in certain areas. But it's when you pull the whole thing together and play it out over 17 years, that's when the real picture can be seen.
Absolutely.
And it's so obvious to it. I mean, once it's put together, anyone could see it.
Right. David, I hate to say it, but we're out of time. But I'm so glad we got to do this. And maybe when you get back from your tour, or in between, when you have a lull, we'll get to do this again.
Yeah. Well, the way things are going now, it'll be January. So January, that's the month between coming home and going away again.
Okay, I'll keep you in mind for then. You take good care.
Okay. Thanks, Maria. Bye.
Bye.